We see it every day in the communities we live in, serve in, travel to, and yet for many of us, it almost becomes invisible, and they blend into the background. I'm talking about the poor. According to the UN, 767 million people live below the international poverty line of, get this, $1.90 a day. And yet for many of us, that number seems too big to fathom, so we feel powerless to do anything. Well, Allison Alley felt the same way until one day she was challenged to make a change. Welcome, Allison.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Okay, we're going to start with your story. Successful life. You know, pretty good. Describe your life a couple years ago.
Sure. About 6 years ago, my life looked a bit different than it does today. I had a successful career in the finance industry, was married, still am married to the man of my dreams, 2 beautiful, healthy children, and we were living in our dream home by the lake, a home that we recently renovated. And I often say that short of a literal white picket fence, it kind of felt like we were living the great Canadian dream.
Were you happy?
I thought that I was at the time until I had this moment in particular after my second daughter was home. And I remember sitting there holding her and feeling like there was this void, this sense of emptiness in me that I couldn't quite describe at the time in light of having everything that I had ever hoped for. And in time, I came to realize that my heart was not aligned to God's, that I was really missing the reason that He created me and the calling and purposes that He had for me.
And what does that look like? Because I think so many of us kind of get through that point where we wonder, yeah, am I aligned with what God wants me to do in my life?
Yeah, for us, there was this opening of our hands in that season and saying, God, all that we are is yours, all that we have is yours, all that we long to be is yours. And there was this real sense that God was calling us to be advocates for children. I had realized for me in particular that I was focused quite narrowly on my own little world, on working so hard to give my kids everything they could ever want and more than they could ever need, while completely ignoring the needs of other children around the world. And so for us in this calling to be child advocates, we took one small faithful step first, and we decided to sponsor a child with an organization that we had only recently heard of, we knew very little about, but we sponsored a little boy named Jimmy from Ecuador through Compassion Canada.
So that's a big transition, right? So if we think about Allison, so you're sitting there with your newborn daughter, and then you're like, I need to advocate for all the children in the world. What happened? What was God saying to you? What was the conversation that you were having with God at that moment?
Yeah, great question. The conversation was vividly the question from God, what about the rest of them? It was, again, this sense that in the same way that I loved and protected and longed for my children to flourish, it was that same heart that God had for all of His children. And of course, the same heart that other moms around the world had who wanted their kids to just survive, never mind thrive. And so God had called my husband and I to 2 very specific steps in this season. One was to put our house for sale and to really go on this downward mobility to live on less and give away more and free up our time as well for the purposes that He had. And over time, it became evident that He was calling me to walk away from the marketplace, to leave my career behind and to enter into ministry.
Wow. Was that scary?
It was. We call it the out of the boat experience for us, where we recognized that we had this secure, stable life that we had built for ourselves. And we were really walking forward into the unknown with nothing but God calling us forward and this sense of trusting Him that He would move us towards the plans that He had for us.
And that organization that you had, gotten this Compassion Child from, you started working for Compassion.
That's right. Never in my wildest dreams would I have anticipated that the onset of a relationship with a little boy named Jimmy would change everything for our family and would lead to me entering full-time vocational ministry at Compassion Canada.
Wow. Well, when we return, we're going to hear about a new initiative that Compassion Canada has taken on and how they are challenging all of us to have eyes to see the poverty in the world. We'll be right back.